We're talking the Spider-Man No Way Home first after credit scene. Guys, Chris and Rob here, the Jersey Comic Crew. Welcome back to another episode involving Spider-Man No Way Home. We, of course, have to talk about the after credit scenes, Rob.
Yes.
And the first after credit scene, we saw our boy Eddie Brock.
This after credit scene, there's a lot of theory craft on what exactly happened and why. Just to set the stage, at the end of Venom 2, he gets blipped into our universe. He saw that Peter Parker Spider-Man on the TV. In this one, he's at a bar in Mexico. He's getting information about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, world of superheroes. He says he got to go talk to the guy Spider-Man to see what's going on. He's obliterated. He's drunk. We learned that like Thanos got the bartender's family away. Yada, yada, yada. We get all that. And then he disappears, right?
Yeah.
And leaves behind a black sludge of the symbiote. Now, everybody, I know, like what? Venom came into the universe just to drop the symbiote and left? What the hell is going on? I could see that. I just don't think that's the story. The reason I don't think that's the story is because I personally feel like that's not good. It's lazy. I feel like it's lazy writing. It's like, wow, like we don't need Venom here to get the symbiote. There has to be more. You could argue that this spell didn't bring Eddie here because Eddie didn't know who Peter Parker was. The spell brought everybody who was knew Peter Parker was here into this universe. I do see the argument that like the Venom symbiote says he can connect to the multiverse. The second he's connected to the multiverse, it started sharing information subconsciously that Venom symbiote from another multiverse they connected where he knows that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. Oh, because of that, he got brought in and then he got kicked out once the spell was over. Cool. I see that theory. It just requires a lot of explanation. And it's like, all right, the average everyday person may not get that right away. And when and where are you going to explain that? Because nobody's going to be like, oh, this is what happened.
Right here.
Yeah, I'm talking about in the story. Unless it's like, oh, Peter gets the Venom symbiote, Doctor Strange does some magic, or he does some magic. And that's how we figure that out. That seems lazy and weird and complicated for the sake of just getting the symbiote in here. I personally believe that there's another reason he got into this universe.
Yeah, man, I don't think so. I think this is one of the times you're grasping at that hope that this wasn't kind of done poorly. Okay. And I think what it gave us face value is exactly that. So there's two things. The first thing is obviously Eddie Brock himself.
Okay.
And I think at this point, Eddie is just the Sony property. I don't think Kevin Feige or Marvel really wants or needs his version of Eddie Brock.
Sure.
I think there's a lot of people, including myself, who aren't really fans of those Venom movies, who still can't really figure out Tom Hardy's take on Eddie Brock. And it's still like very uncomfortable. I think this was just to get the symbiote into the MCU. And the other side is this.
And recast Eddie Brock? Because obviously Venom's coming in this universe. They're going to just recast him and waste Tom Hardy?
I think Tom Hardy is going to be the Sony side only.
Okay.
Just like the villains of Toby and just like the villains of Andrew.
Okay.
And I think we're going to get an MCU Eddie Brock that is a new actor. And here's why.
Go ahead.
It's not the spell. Everyone's talking about the spell being the reason that Eddie went back. It's not.
I don't think so. I don't even think this
box. It's the box.
Oh.
The box, when it finally gets pressed, sends all of them back to their rightful universes. Right?
Yeah.
Toby goes back. Andrew goes back. All the villains go back. The spell is to make sure that anyone who knows Peter Parker and everyone forgets who Peter Parker is. Remember, the threat is multiversal. So all these different universes where there were glimpses, might have been like a Celestial even, like things possibly breaking through, which would have either killed him.
Yeah, so are you in the camp that like Venom, Eddie Brock from the Sony universe was brought to the MCU by Doctor Strange's spell? Because like the second the symbiote connected hive mind to the multiverse, a portion of him consciously or unconsciously knew it was Peter Parker and he got sucked in. Are you in that camp?
I'm in the camp that he got sucked in because of the multiversal mistake at the beginning of Spider-Man No Way Home. That's where I'm at. Okay. That's as far as I'm at because again, there's just not enough to grab.
Fair.
But I think with what we have, there's a basic understanding. Mm-hmm. And that is the end of Venom 2, that after credit scene where he gets sucked into the MCU, is kind of at the same time as the spell with Strange
I get that.
and Peter Parker. That ending where he gets sucked back, I think it's the box. I think it's, hey, it detected anyone who should not be here in the universe. It's not your universe. You're going back home, right?
Okay.
I think Eddie went home. I think Eddie went back because that box affected him, even though he wasn't there present. It has nothing to do with the spell about forgetting who Peter Parker is. It has to do about you're not supposed to be here. And yes, I think it was a lazy writing move to get a symbiote into the MCU.
I got. You want to hear my theory?
I do. I'm a little afraid of it.
It's gonna blow your mind. Actually,
Okay.
I can't take full credit of this theory. I actually have to give credit to my brother, who sparked the theory, had the groundwork, and I built upon it. I believe the way he got out of the universe was a little different, visually speaking, than the other ones. The others kind of faded away. He kind of glowed white and got out, right?
Yeah.
Now, what if I tell you that the overcomplicated reason that he got into it, because the hive mind, the connected multiverse, is nonsense about how he got into there? What if I told you the reason he got into this multiverse was an accident based on an animated property? What if I told you that Into the Spider-Verse, traveling across the multiverse, something goes crazy haywire, and because of that, because of that, they're traveling other multiverses, right? And then like other spiders, not connected to the main story, get pushed into other universes and pushed back, and that glow kind of like resets everything because of the Spider-Verse. Because I think it's visually different. I have to rewatch the movie again to really make sure. So what if it's like this is the first time an animated property has real world effects on live action? Because it's Spider-Verse, it's all multiverse, right? It's all kinds of crazy stuff. They're doing that willy-nilly in the movie. The second one, they're doing it, traveling across all kinds of stuff. What if that's why? Because of all that, and maybe we see Venom and Eddie Brock animated into the Spider-Verse because Sony could play with Sony, right? And this is the first time live action crosses over with animated.
Maybe. I think that's a stretch. I think it's a big stretch.
I know it is.
I think that theory was also at the beginning of this movie, right? I think No Way Home had that theory where, well, if they're bringing Toby and Andrew in, can they bring in animated Miles and stuff like that? And it's like, no, that doesn't make sense.
No, you can't bring animated into live action, but I'm saying live
action. Like, if Venom is animated in that movie and voiced by Tom Hardy, possibly. If that is where he's going to stay, but that also kind of coincides with, that means he's also staying in that Sony side. Into the Spider-Verse, as fantastic as it is, even though it's a Marvel property, that is Sony by itself. They're making all the dough on that. That is their nut right now. That's where they're making all their money. I don't think they're going to want to share that with Marvel right now when they're already sharing the Peter Parker stuff live action.
I see. So
I think
they don't want to use their stuff to help Marvel when they don't need to.
Exactly. Yeah. Like they're already doing well with that. Keep the live action quote unquote multiverse going. And then you have your Spider-Verse over here. If Tom Hardy's game of doing an animated voice, I don't know if that necessarily, even if he's in it as Venom, right? Even if he's in the animated stuff as Venom, there's not necessarily meaning that he's going to cross over. It's like, oh, he came from the live action and it's crossed over. No, he could just be doing the voice for it. You know what I mean? So
that's very true.
I think that's a big stretch, but I do agree with the point of how Eddie left seemed different than
okay, so it wasn't just crazy, left. Right?
No, you're still crazy.
Okay.
But I think the aspect of how he left in that glowing like white yellow light was a little bit different than the way everyone else kind of did. So that's a possibility that has to still be explored. But at the end of the day, I am a little worried that they kind of just were like, here's a symbiote. Bye. Like, to which I was like kind of left in the theater like, what? Like, what is this?
Yeah.
Like not even like going, like he was in space already. You had Spidey in space already with Infinity War. He couldn't have picked it up then, right? Like you couldn't have made that. Like it's so much better than even the terrible Spider-Man 3 with Toby. At least it came to Earth in like a meteor.
Well, what if the reasoning is like that's the live catalyst? Like it's small, right? It needs to grow, right? But what if, like, on the meteor and everything else, the Venom symbiote is there, maybe knocked out unconscious, right? Maybe it's just the gobble-goo is there, right?
Yeah.
And then the Eddie spark from the multiverse just goes to give it that spark of life. Does it retain any knowledge? Does it have anything, right? It's just like, it's a spark of a living thing to spark whatever's here. It finds itself and connects to the other missing piece, if you will. And then it gives us that.
I
But
don't
then
know.
again, like, why do we
but they
need
did
that?
it for a reason. Yeah, like they did it for a reason, right? So like it's gonna be there. I think it's gonna grow and expand. I think what they need to do first is get the kind of origin correct, right? I think eventually it needs to attach itself to Peter, gain those properties of Spider-Man. So when it eventually we get a Venom with Eddie Brock, he could actually swing like a spider.
I definitely see at the end of the first movie in the 3 Spider-Man movies, that's where he gets the black suit.
Yeah, like I was my original like theory going into the theater was like, oh, with the Venom situation, we might see him with a black suit in an after credit scene.
Yeah, because we're like, what do we do? Why introduce Venom? It just seems so weird and wonky that they just did this to drop the symbiote off. That's why I'm like, there has to be a bigger explanation. It could be like Chris said, Sony just did a poor job with this after credit tease between the 2 movies.
And again, stuff like this happens in big business, right? Where some things just get left on the cutting room floor, or some stuff just gets like there's not enough time to really flesh this out. And Marvel could have been like, listen, this is how much money we're invested in this. This is our character to begin with. We want Venom in this universe, right? We don't necessarily want the Tom Hardy Venom. We want our own Venom. We want to do comic correct Venom. And this is how we want to do it. You need to get us the symbiote. We need to get him here, even if it's for a little bit of time, and kind of blip the symbiote in. So regardless of how that's going to play, I do think the MCU is going to have its own Eddie Brock, just the way as, you know, the other characters from other universes had their own Peter Parkers. So I think, unfortunately, this might be an after credit scene that kind of, hopefully in a couple of years, we don't care about because the stuff is so much better.
Or hopefully in a couple of years, we find out the big reason behind it and we're wrong. It's like that would be even better. I would love to know. I would love to know that now. You know what I mean? Like I would too.
Because the way I was sitting there was like, okay, now I got to figure out why and how. You know what I mean? It wasn't like clear and cut. It was just like, okay, this is weird. Who made an executive decision here to just throw this in? So I hope it'll flesh itself out. I'm sure Kevin Feige will course correct this eventually.
So, guys, we want to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. What you thought of the after credit scene from Spider-Man. Yes, we know that there's another one. Stay tuned. We're going to talk about that in a separate video because that was essentially a teaser for a whole nother movie.
And guys, thanks so much for watching. Give us a thumbs up, like, really helps the channel out a lot. If you're new, subscribe and turn on those notifications. Don't miss any more, especially that teaser that's coming out for the second after credit scene. And guys, if you missed anything, make sure to check them out here on the channel. They are here for you. And as always, I am Chris Heller. That is Rob Moran. We're the Jersey Comic Crew, and we'll see you next time.